Serious Survivor here. And today we're going to talk about assessment. Assessing our preparations, our skills, our abilities, and ensuring that we have everything we need to survive any type of disaster. When it comes to prepping, it can be overwhelming. There are many different aspects and scenarios in which we must prepare for. Skills and knowledge are forefront in this type of discussion, but the types and quantities of gear we have can also play a huge role in whether or not a particular situation is survivable. When assessing our gear, it helps to have a way to keep track of a lot of these miscellaneous supplies that are not at the front of our attention normally. Remember, anything is a survival tool if it is something that will aid you or the ones you love in an SHTF scenario. Not all events are equal, while others will affect localized or regional areas. But for those trying to survive these events, it doesn't matter how widespread, it matters if they have the skills, knowledge, and gear and supplies to make it through without having to take drastic measures. This video will look at the different areas of prepping and talk about what we should look at, and also we will look at an in-depth document that can serve as some sort of checklist or inventory device for you. This is an Excel document and it'll be available for free on my website in the link in the description. So let's get started. After that winter wake-up call and the breakdown of the power grid, no one can deny that we're all quite vulnerable. We saw power grid failures and severe weather made the food supply chain come to a grinding halt in many parts of the country. Whenever that happens, people will suffer. That's why it's smart to prepare in advance for these disasters by stocking up on long-term storage emergency food. Food that can last for up to 25 years so you never go hungry. I strongly recommend My Patriot Supply, America's leader in self-reliance. They're the only source that I use for emergency food planning, and right now you can save $50 off a 4-week supply of delicious meals that give you 2,000 plus calories a day. And that's exactly what you'll need to survive the next disaster. And saving $50 is impossible to pass up, but supplies are limited. So go to preparewithserioussurvivor.com and stock up now. That's preparewithserioussurvivor.com. There's no time to lose, so do it now. The first category is self-defense, firearms, and ammo. Ammo we're going to look a little deeper at when we look at the document in a moment, but one of the most important things we can take into consideration when it comes to firearms is not just the fact that I possess them, but I have the ability to use them efficiently, and not just use them. As long as money isn't an issue, anyone can purchase pretty much any gun. But this doesn't do us much good 3 years from now in an SHTF or some type of apocalyptic scenario. So in addition to being able to obtain a firearm and ammunition, you have to assess your ability to maintain that firearm and ammunition. And this is where things like spare parts, and not just spare parts for your firearms, but the ability to clean your firearms properly, the ability to handle them properly, the ability to repair them when the time comes. And this is often overlooked. A lot of people own guns that they can't even take apart. Don't let yourself be one of those people. Number 2 is vehicle. We want to assess the state of our vehicle and the preps we keep in our vehicle. This is a very important aspect because for a lot of people, they only have one vehicle. Some people have 2, some have 3, and that's great. But for those that only have one, it's of the utmost importance to assess the physical condition, the mechanical condition, I should say, of your vehicle, and make sure that it's in top condition at all times, or at least what you can afford to do with it. And we want to keep what's called a vehicle supply kit in there. This vehicle kit would contain items such as these that we see on the screen here. And the reason for this is because when SHTF truly does hit, if it's a world-stopping event that brings everything to a grinding halt, and you're 300 miles away from home, then having supplies in your vehicle is going to be the difference between life and death for some people. Number 3, assess your location and have a bug-out plan. No matter if you live in the middle of a rural environment or in the middle of a metropolitan hub, the need to bug out may happen sooner than later depending on the type of event that we're facing. And assessing your environment is actually a pretty easy task. Look at the population density in the area you live. The greater the population density, then mathematically speaking, the greater the need to bug out when supplies do run out for other people. Having a plan to get out of the city is not an easy thing, but it's not a hard thing. It's not something that takes months to prepare, but it is something I'm going to have to sit down for several hours and lay out these plans and make sure that my family is well aware of our rendezvous locations and the multiple various routes that we would use to get out of the area. This subject actually deserves a video on its own, and that's going to be coming out very soon.
Also in this category is a map and compass, and not just a map and compass, but the ability to effectively use these. It's very easy to use a map and even a compass when I'm using road maps or city maps, but when you get out in the wilderness, this is a totally different environment, and things become a lot more difficult when it comes to navigation. So not just having the devices, but the ability to navigate using a map and compass is one of the most important skills in your bug out plan.
Number 4 is bug out gear. There are so many videos on the internet talking about bug out gear, and most of them have the 10 major things in common with one another. There's always more that can be added, but we're going to explore that a little more as we look at the document. I just want to touch on the different categories here, and then we'll look at the document and see how this document can help us out. Number 5 is food. Now, assessing your food can be easy or difficult depending on the type of food that you're prepping. In my case, I use a combination. I have canned goods, I have some long-term shelf-stable goods, and also have long-term survival food. But it can be hard to keep track of your canned goods to know exactly what you have, and of some of your other goods, your box goods, your other shelf stables. And we're going to look at a way that we can do that with this document that's extremely efficient. Number 6, things such as tools for maintenance around the house, tools for your vehicles, because in a situation in which maybe the grid is down or we're in a without rule of law situation to where I can't hire somebody to do the work I need done. I can't hire somebody to fix the windows. I can't hire somebody to fix my vehicle. Having the proper tools will be of essential importance. Number 7, medical supplies. Now this category is different for everybody, and we're going to look at that also in the spreadsheet. But this is something that you have to tailor specifically for you and the ones that are going to be with you. Of course, the basic first aid supplies. For a bug-in plan, there's no limit on the number that you should have. So medical supplies can be some of the most valuable supplies. These are definitely better to have and not need than need and not have. Number 8, home preps. These are the preps for your home, just like it sounds. And this is not your food. This is not your water. This is things that keep your home secure. Do you have the materials you need to board up your windows? Do you have the materials you need to put out a fire if there is a fire in your home? Anything that can prepare your home for an assault. You have to assess the location of your home. If I'm in a neighborhood that is extremely crowded and there are thousands of people within just a square mile of me, then maybe my home is not going to be the best place to stay depending on the type of scenario. So home preps, something that also falls into this category, is group preparation. If you are in an environment in which people are packed together tightly, then it's going to benefit you to befriend at least some of those people. You don't have to befriend everyone, because when a scenario hits, a lot of people will work with you that you didn't expect to. And on the other hand, a lot of people won't work with you that you thought would. So this is something that's going to take a little footwork, getting to know your neighbors, ensuring that your house is prepared properly, that it can survive a at least small assault. Hate to put it like that, but we have to look at those types of things. Number 9, physical and mental. Physical and mental is self-explanatory. When it comes to being physically prepared, that's basically just being physically fit. I'm not saying that everyone needs to be a marathon runner or everyone needs to be an Olympic bodybuilder. We don't have to take it to that level, but we do want to be in the best physical condition that we can actually be in. Not everyone can go to the gym for 4, 5, 6 hours a day. I know that I can. I don't have time for that. So I do what I can to keep myself in in pretty decent physical condition. And this is very important because the better shape you're in at the beginning of the event, the better chance you're going to have of surviving that event. Which brings us to the second half of number 9, and that's mental. And this is going to be a breaking point for a lot of people. An apocalyptic scenario is not something that people are just going to look at and shrug off when it's going on. I think in general that most people will surprise us. Most people will do much better than we would expect them to, because humans adapt, and we generally adapt pretty well for the most part. And being mentally prepared, to be completely honest, other than just being mentally strong, secure in yourself, secure in your abilities, self-confidence, and having people around you that you can trust, those things are going to make a huge difference on the mental aspect of surviving an apocalyptic scenario. Number 10, and this one applies across the board, but I guess in the beginning, an economic collapse is going to be what we have to look at for number 10 here, and that's our job. We need to assess our job. And when I say our job, I don't just mean, how much money you make and where you work at, but I mean the skills that you have acquired and learned on that job. Are these skills tradable? Are they viable in an economic collapse situation? Are they specialized skills that only work in certain environments, maybe in a laboratory or something like that? And with the grid down, then obviously there will be no employment for me. There will be no means for me to trade my skills. There are certain types of skills that will transfer over to multiple jobs, whereas some are just very specialized and only good in that one location. So assess your job. Think about, what is the likelihood that I will lose my job if the economy takes another downturn? And for a lot of people, the likelihood is very high. Not just looking at, will I lose my job, but also look at what will you do if you do lose your job. All right, here we're going to look at a document that I put together. And this document, I put a lot of time in. It took me a few days to put this together. I've incorporated a lot of formulas into Excel in this document that makes the calculations for us. And it'll calculate things such as total calories that I have, and for my particular types of preps, the total number of servings, the calories per serving. So using this, I can accurately tell exactly what I have on hand and exactly what I need to not only replace, but what I also need to add to. When you open the Excel document, the first page is going to be the summary tab. On the summary here, if you look across the bottom, you'll see several other tabs. You have food, long-term food, water, household, ammunition, bug-out bag checklist, medical, tools, specialized gear, and maps. And we're going to look at each one of these pages briefly. Now remember, this document can be added to. If there's something that you want to add to it, add to it. If there's some customization you want, send me an email, and I'd be more than happy to help you out and figure out some of these formulas. But let's begin by looking at what this first page does. The first page is exactly like it sounds. It's a summary of all the different pages showing me the total quantity of each of these items that I have on hand. If these are normally the type of items that come in containers, like ammunition comes in boxes, usually we don't just walk around with it in a Ziploc bag normally. So it comes in boxes, and this tells me how many boxes of ammunition I have on hand, how many containers I have, or pill bottles, or first aid boxes, anything that's a container that contains supplies. This tells me how many containers I have on hand for medical here. Some of the other categories didn't really need the container, so I left it off. But another important part is the cost. This is going to tally up the cost for each of the entries I put into any one of those pages. This page automatically updates as you make entries into any other page in this book. And that's very important to remember, because, I don't have to come to this front page and update it. When I make a change to the number of food, if I have now a quantity of 32, then that's going to update here automatically. And you can see when I click on it, the formulas that are up here. So it's linked to other parts of the document. So as I update the other parts, it will automatically update here. Also on this handy page, I can see up here the total cost of all the items. My total investment so far for all of these preps. Now, this is not my prep sheet, as far as these are not my gear in here. This is just some random samples that I put in for this video here so that we can see how it works. If you don't know how much food you need, then there's this handy food calculator here, and this food calculator is based on the average consumption or average daily need of 2,000 calories. So if I say I want to stock enough food for 12 months for 8 people. And I press enter. Now I see that for 12 months for 8 people, I'm going to need a minimum of 2,928 servings. 2,928 servings. So depending on the type of food I got, as we can see right here, I'm nowhere near that goal. But this is a sample. So that's a pretty handy thing there, and also knowing how much I've got invested and being able to look at this front page and tell exactly what I got. Now, if I'm looking at the page and I say, well, bug out bag checklist, I got 39 things in there. Well, obviously I can't tell that here, so I would have to go to the tab down. We're going to work our way across all these tabs very quickly because I don't want to take up too much of your time. The first page is food. I break it down in 2 categories because I look at it 2 different ways. The 25-year shelf life food is food that I get into on down the line when these supplies right here run out. These are what I'm going to eat until I run out of food, and then I'm going to move into my long-term category. Now, looking at this page, we see the type of food, and we see the examples that I just randomly put in here. Canned beef stew, canned green beans, just normal things. Now, let's look at the top line here. Quantity. This is the quantity. This is the total number of cans, total number of items, 10 cans. At 16 ounces a can, the size is always in ounces. So you may have to do a little calculation if you're buying 5 and 10 pound bags of stuff. So 16 ounces per can at a total cost of $20, a cost of $2 per unit. Calorie count per serving, 600 calories per serving. Not sure how accurate that is for beef stew, just random numbers. Number of servings in that container, 4. The total number of servings I have for all of these is 40, which gives me a total number of calories at 240,000. That may sound like a huge number, but calories are actually pretty small. This is, not that big of a number. Prep, Y or N, this means do I have to prepare this food? And in this case, no, because I can eat canned beef stew straight out of the can if I want to. Location. Now, I'll put the location on there for those people that have more than one location. For example, if you do not have a bug out location, then you're probably not stocking goods and piling it in the woods somewhere. You're probably keeping it at your home. If you do have a bug out location, then you have your preps at your home, but you also have your preps that you're storing at that location. So it's a good idea to be able to make the distinction between the two here, and that way I'll know exactly what I got and where I got it. Then 2 other important aspects are the date purchased and the expiration date. The next is long-term food, and this is broken down basically the same way. Now, what you're going to see here is a bunch of zeros because I've set formulas in here that will multiply the quantity times the cost per unit and to give you the approximate cost that you've got. You can actually do away with that formula if you just want to input your total cost. That's completely up to you. When we look at this page, it's broken down basically similar to what we saw on the last page, the type of long-term food. In this case, I have a 30-day bucket. I'm going to add a 60-day bucket on here just so we can see some changes. All right, 60-day bucket, quantity of 1. And let's say this bucket cost me, I'm just going to say $200. And I hit enter. So now it updated my total cost here. Number of servings is, I'm going to say 180. Total servings, since I only got 1 bucket, that would still be 180. Calories per serving, what I'm going to have to do here is sort of look at, because these long-term food supplies will have different products in them, different types of meals. So I'm going to open this storage thing up and take an average of the calories per serving. And this should be on the documentation of the website where you buy your food. And I'm just going to go again with 750 there for calories per serving. And total calories comes to your calories per serving times the number of servings. So I could have set up a formula there, but I just have not done that. So my number of servings is 180 times 750. And that gives me a total of 135,000 calories. And then once again, date purchased and expiration date. Now, as I entered the total cost in here, if we go back to our summary page, we'll see we're now up to $820.47. we'll see now that long-term food, we have 4 instead of 3. More calories, total servings have went up. So this does carry over when I input. Now the next one is water. Now on this water, I have to add a few more things into it. So the reason I added these into it is because it's going to help you out. Calculating your water, there's a lot of different ways. You know, we hear liters, we hear gallons, we hear ounces, you know, and milliliters. We hear a lot of different terminology. So that's why we have these handy calculators over here on the right-hand side. And only enter data into the red, because if you click on these blue fields right here, you'll see these are formulas. And if I hit delete, then I deleted that formula, so it will not calculate anymore. All right, so if I have 18.25 gallons of water, then once I enter that in, we can see the total number of ounces for that water, how many liters that equals up to, how many servings of water that is, and how many days supply. Which days supply is pretty easy because it's on the average of a gallon per day. You don't need to necessarily drink quite that much, but we're factoring in washing your hands, brushing your teeth, and things like that. Now there's this chart on the far right hand side right here that just gives a little information. Now as we look at the quantities and all here, the type is, what kind do I have? I got some purified, you know, this is purified bottles. So quantity 24, and 24 bottles are in that quantity. This is not a gallon jug, so I don't put anything there. It's not a 5-gallon jug. I don't put anything there. 12 ounces per bottle. And this gives me a total ounce of 288. Number of servings, that comes to 36 total servings. Number of days supply, 2.25. Although we know we could probably stretch that out a little more. I like to stay conservative on these. It's better to have more than I need than not enough. But then the weight in pounds and the cost. Next page, household goods. And this is pretty much a straightforward list. It's probably the simplest list of everything. Everybody has different needs for their household goods, so I left this a little blank. And what I would recommend would be going across the top right here and inputting, you know, is this cleaning supplies, and maybe a check mark. Is this toiletries? Is this kitchen cleaner, kitchen supplies? You know, whatever those types of supplies are. Ammunition. Now, ammunition looks like a simple page also, and it is. Because when it comes to the ammunition, there's only a couple things we need to know, really. I mean, you could probably add the date in here that you purchased it. But we need to know what caliber it is, what type it is, and how much we got. The next one's bug out bag checklist. And on this one, I put some of the most common items that everybody needs in their bug out bag. So this is pretty much self-explanatory. So it can just help us organize and see what we're missing. If I see any zeros up here, then I'm like, hey, that's the category I need to put some work into. The next is medical. When we go to the medical, this one is a little different. I've actually broken some things down into categories across the top here so we can see an idea of the different types of scenarios that we would be treating possibly. You have your item here, whatever it is you bought, the cost of that item, the quantity of that item, the number of containers or number of boxes for the Band-Aids, number of bottles for the Tylenol. Is it for a specialized condition? Yes, and these top 3, as we can see, are not. The bottom one is yes. Now, is this a necessary part of the chart? Probably not. But I think the more information that we have, the better we're going to be, the more prepared we will be. Is this a prescription item? Yes. Is this just a basic first aid item? In the case of these 3, yeah. And the different categories, you can always add more. And tools. As we can see with tools, it's a basic page, basically. We just have our type of tool, what it is, the cost that we paid for these tools, the quantity of those tools that we have in stock, the category. It probably isn't all that important, but, you know, like I said before, the more information, the better. So the location, once again, workshop, vehicle, and if I were storing some of this location at my bug out location, then I would have BOL on that category. The next to last page is specialized gear. And specialized gear is exactly what it sounds like. This is hard to categorize, and it's hard to categorize because there's so many different types of events. So on the main page, the only thing you're going to see is a reflection of the cost and quantity of these, because there's a lot of different things. This could be my gas mask, my respirators, my CBRN suit. It could be anything. It could be anything that I would use for a specific purpose. And the last page that I put in here is maps. With the maps page, this is it's a pretty easy page too, but it helps me keep track, especially for somebody like me who has more maps than I know what to do with. So this is going to help me to keep track of my maps and organize them. The first category is location. What's the location of this map? For example, I put South Carolina for this one because this one, as we can see, is a state map. So you have the location, the cost of the map, the quantity, and whether or not it's a city, county, regional, state, multi-state, country, or world map. Then the type of map. And there's multiple types of maps, as we know. And this is a road map for the first one. And as we can see, the one below it is a topographical map. The scale in which it's in, and whether or not this is waterproof. So this is a handy document, or at least I hope that you find it handy. I know that it helps me, and I think for a lot of people out there who like to, keep their stuff organized and have a really accurate count of what they got, then something like this is going to help you out a lot. If it's not this, make one of your own, something that you can keep track and assess your inventory, because I can't assess my preps if I'm just trying to remember what I got off the top of my head. Having a list like this, having an inventory list, will help me look at this first page basically here and see what more do I need to add. Where do I need to make improvements? Where am I good at? Do I have overkill in some areas? So I really hope this helps out. Thanks a lot for watching. And for now, Seer Survivor, out.